It's called Mastery Connect. So we have that. And then we're using Canvas for school. And then we have a new grade book. We have a new attendance. We have a new reading program and math program. So it's all just,
oh my, yeah.
It's all just so, you know, on top of like learning, okay, going back, like kind of like a first year teacher, you know, learning the ropes of virtual schooling. It's like, oh, we have a new assessment program. We have a new reading program. And it's just, I mean, it's going to be an adventure for sure. It's going to be an experience, but I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to see my kids, even if it's online.
Well, I'm sure they'll be excited to see you too.
Yes.
To hear about, you know. It's a little scary, I'm sure, when you're first getting.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have, did you go virtual in March?
So I did choose to, so we went virtual in March through June. It was not mandatory. I did teach though. I had 28 kids, and out of 28, I had maybe, it depended on the day, between 11 and 15 would come on, which wasn't bad. So they like already know, I guess, how to use Zoom and all of that, you know, stuff, but we didn't have Canvas in the spring. So that's just something like we're getting used to and learning about, and the modules and the assignments and just putting it all together basically.
Right.
But yeah, I helped out actually today too. I helped pass out materials for different grades for those that weren't able to come throughout the week. And it was good to see some of the kids, like I couldn't say, oh, like I'm going to be your teacher because they're not sending out letters till next week.
Right.
But just to, you know, get familiar with, like, just to see their faces and just to see them and, you know, their smiling faces. But
That's nice.
yes.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We are going to get started, so I'm going to ask you to mute. Are you guys muted? Or I'll mute you.
Oops.
If you don't mute, I will mute you. I don't know why it's not allowing me to mute you, David, but. Okay, all right. Shabbat Shalom. Let's get started lighting the candles. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. So welcome to our Shabbat. I hope everybody is safe and dry as we've had all these storms going through, and of course our hearts and thoughts and prayers are with the people of Louisiana and Texas on the coast who've been hit especially hard over these last 2 days with these hurricanes and storms. Let's, however, transition into Shabbat with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Machem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the psalm for Shabbat: the righteous will flourish like the palm tree, they will thrive like the cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish in the courts of our God. Even in old age, they will bear fruit, retaining their vigor and their strength, proclaiming that the Lord is just, my rock in whom there is no unrighteousness. Tzadikatama Yifrach Te'eres Balvanon Yizgeh Shetulim Mevet Adonai Mechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvon B'Seva Deshenim Verananim Yiyu Lehagid Ki Yashar Adonai Zuri Velo Avlatamo. So someone reminded me that the full moon is this week, coming up this week on Wednesday, which means that Rosh Hashanah is only 2 weeks away after we have the full moon. Unbelievable, but that means we're into 2 weeks into Elul, the month in which we prepare our hearts and our minds and our homes, perhaps, our kitchens, for the high holy days. Last week we talked about the meaning of the shofar and focused a little on that. This week I want to talk a little bit about the concept of teshuvah. Teshuvah is often translated as atonement, but it more accurately from the Hebrew is turning. Teshuvah means to turn. And it's the process by which we assess the path that we've been on up to this point in the year. And if you missed last year, maybe the point that you're on in general, and look at where you might have deviated from the path that you want to be on. Are there apologies that you want to offer? Are there fences to mend? Have you picked up or went back to habits that you were trying to have a better relationship with, or people you would like to have a better relationship with? The process of tshuva is thinking about those things, meditating on them, and then taking action where necessary to make amends, to make atonement, to repent, to change, or just to set yourself back on course. So our first poem is by Shifra Tobacman, and it is called Loving Kindness Within Loving Kindness. It is sort of a meditation for tshuva. Take a breath, look around, hear the shofar beckon from another time of year. Awaken to it, let it open you to beauty, even in difficult times. Take in the goodness that surrounds you. Kindness rests within kindness. This is the platform from which we begin the new year. Notice the journey you have already taken. Look back at the terrain. Remember its variations and its consistencies. Turn again and look ahead. The mountain on the horizon is your heart's deepest wisdom. Take time to notice its shape and size from afar, the path to reach it. Feel the ground underneath your feet. Trust the earth which holds you, the universal generosity which contains within it all the kindnesses you have ever known or could want to know. Step up to the first gate, cross the threshold, and see what awaits. And by special request, in order to bring in Shabbat, because when we first started this live streaming of our Kabbalat Shabbat service, I put together a sort of Siddur handout of some of the highlights of the Siddur to sort of figure out how to do this. And we've left out a lot of things that we usually do on a Friday night. One of them is Lecha Dodi. So we're going to do the first two and the last two stanzas of Lecha Dodi, which are not in the packet that I gave out, but some of you may be able to follow along just without it. So if you have a prayer book, a Siddur, it is on page 38. One of our Siddurim, the Siddur Chadash. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ishme'anu. Elam yuchad Adonai echad u'shema echad l'shem u'tiferet ve'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha ki mekor aderacha merosh mekedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshavat tefila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Yamin u'smol tiferot tziv'et Adonai ta'aritzi ayat ish bein parzi v'nismecha v'nagila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala. Pene Shabbat nekabela. And if you'd like to stand, you can do so and turn toward the door. Any door, whichever door is in your house that you feel want to stand and turn towards. Boi v'shalom, ateret kala gam besimcha, u'v'tzola tochem u'ne ha'apsegula, boi chala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. And another reflection on this topic of return in the unison benediction by May Sarton. Return to the most human, nothing less will nourish the torn spirit, the bewildered heart, the angry mind, and from the ultimate duress, pierced with the breath of anguish, speak of love. Return to the deep sources, nothing less will teach the stiff hands a new way to serve, to carve into our lives the form of tenderness and still that ancient, necessary pain preserve. Return to the most human, nothing less will teach the angry spirit, the bewildered heart, the torn mind, to accept the whole of its duress and pierced with anguish, at last act for love. And let's prepare ourselves for the Shema by taking a moment just of silent reflection, just to listen to our hearts, to where we are this evening as we go into Shabbat. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levavecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha uvlechtecha b'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam le'ot al yadecha v'ayu letotafot bein einecha uv'tavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha. And another prayer, another poem called Tender Moment, which reflects not only on the idea of return, but the idea of the unsettling aspect of change. When we find ourselves having to, whether willingly or not, move into a new way of being, a new way of practicing, a new way in the world, as many of us, most of us are at this point in time, it's hard and it can hurt and it can be unsettling and we might not know exactly where it is we're going. But we get there. That's what the turning is about in terms of tshuva, and the turning about being human in the world. So by Gopika Dahanukar, Tender Moment. We are walking away from who we are while we are moving towards who we know we are. We are finding no space to breathe in the chaos while we are holding chaos lovingly with our breath. We are not knowing where we are going while we are trusting a place known to us. We are lost in finding what art is while we are found in ourselves being lost. And let's pause here for a blessing for healing for those in our community. And if you would like to add names in the chat section of Zoom, you can do that. In our community, we are remembering, especially thinking of Walter Hirschman, Bradley Goopfinger, Sue Bernstein, Norma Mandel, Audrey Wolfberg, and Norma Yohai. All of the other names of people in our hearts, the names that are said, the names that we're holding close and dear to us. Misheberach Avotenu Mikor Havracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mikor Havracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And the people Israel shall keep Shabbat as a sign of the covenant for all generations eternally. It is an everlasting sign between me and the people Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day ceased and was refreshed. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. And before we move into the Amidah, time of silent reflection, some words from the poet Mary Oliver, The Journey. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. We'll take some time for the Amidah, the silent reflection. I will shut off the video feed so that you can have some private time to pray, and we will come back in a few moments. Oseh shalom bimromav, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael. Thank you to my kind assistants. So the Parsha, I want to just say a couple of words about the Parsha before ending with a final thought about tshuva, about turning. The Parsha is Ki Tetzeh, and it is one of those parshiot, there are many in the Torah, one of the Torah sections that challenges us, both challenges and uplifts us at the same, in different places. So for me, one of the most uplifting parts of it is the reminder that when you harvest your fields, that you should leave the edges of your fields unharvested so that the poor can come and reap the harvest. And so it's this way not only of taking care of people, making sure people who don't have food, but it's really an example of people doing it themselves, being able to do it themselves. Sorry. So you have to excuse me because Betsy is here helping me with the thing that I forgot. Oh, yes. Thank you. Can you just leave that there? Yeah. Okay, or if you write that down. Sorry. So, Ki Tetzeh. So the good one, the good part is the harvest, being able to glean offering to glean the harvest. And this week, this was really brought home for us when we had our takery, and at the last minute, we didn't have the meal that we thought we were going to be able to serve. And so I activated the macaroni and cheese corps, which is of course led by Vicki Speck. And we were able to feed about 60 servings, 60 meals of macaroni and cheese, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables from the Lewisburg Community Garden, melons that were donated from the Dries Market that's over on in Shamokin Dam, and all sorts of other things that were donated to people who were really in need in our community here in Sunbury. Of course, that's something we do once a month. And one of the reasons that we are doing this project as a Jewish community is because of these lines in Ki Tetzeh that talk to us about not only feeding the hungry, but enabling the hungry to gather food. The disturbing part, and I have to say that there are a number in this parsha, but the one that I want to reflect on is the one that actually opens the parsha, thank you, that says, if you go to war and you take captives, and among the captives you find a woman who is beautiful, this is obviously, or not obviously, but it should be obvious that it's for the male warriors, you should take you can take a beautiful woman who you have taken captive, and you can bring her home rather than, doing whatever they do, putting in prison, whatever they do, or selling, whatever, I don't know what they did with everybody else, but you can take this woman home, and for 30 days you have to give her things, good clothes to wear, you have to allow her to bathe and clean up and and it says cut her nails. And after those 30 days, if you still find her beautiful, you can marry her. and she can be your wife. If, on the other hand, after those 30 days, you decide you no longer find her attractive, you can't hold her captive. You have to grant her her freedom. So it's it is an interesting and puzzling part of the Torah. And I just wanted to read, rather than try to parse it all out and figure it out, but just to read a poem by Rick Lupert, who I think does a really nice job of sort of wrestling with the difficulty of this. And this poem is called Ki Tetzeh. If you are at war and find your captives are beautiful, the laws of our people, 74 of which are listed this week, tell you this could lead to a bona fide engagement. If you are at war and you find your captives are beautiful, how does that make you feel about having taken them captive? If you are at war and find your captives are beautiful, who has captured whom? If you are at war and find your captives are beautiful, do you forget what it is the war was about? Do you forget the meaning of the word war? Do you get in the cage with your captives and lose yourself in their beauty? If you are at war and find your captives are beautiful, you may take them home. That is allowed according to the words we read this week. And every time this week comes along in years past and the ones which will pass, you may find after a time your beautiful captives in your home may not find you the way you find them. And after a time, you will have to let them go to wherever it is they wish to go. That is the law. That is the sacred word on the beautiful who you've captured. Did you see they were beautiful before or after you captured them? Let them go. They will not sing in your cage, these birds of war, these human birds, these spoils of war, who will not spoil, these captives. You know what to do. And finally, in a moment, tomorrow we are having a Zoom bar mitzvah, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the Parsha from Ben Rogovin, and Mazal Tov to his family, the Rogovin-Taylor family. Ben tackles a lot in his speech, his sermon about the Torah portion, and not just the good stuff. So he does a very impressive job of it. Now is the time for turning, by Jack Reimer. To everything there is a season, and there is an appointed time for every purpose under heaven. Now is the time for turning. The seasons change, as does the balance of day and night. The birds are beginning to turn and are heading once more toward the south. The animals are beginning to turn to storing their food for the winter. For the earth, for birds and animals, turning comes naturally. But for us, turning does not come so easily. It takes an act of will for us to make a turn. It means breaking with old habits. It means admitting that we have been wrong, and this is never easy. It means losing face. It means starting all over again, and this is always painful. It means saying, I am sorry. It means admitting that we have the ability to change, and this is always embarrassing. These things are terribly hard to do, but unless we turn, we will be trapped forever in yesterday's ways. Dear God, help us to turn from callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love, from pettiness to purpose, from envy to contentment, from carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith. Turn us around, O God, and bring us back toward you. Revive our lives as at the beginning, and turn us toward each other, God, for in isolation there is no life. And I forgot, it took me by surprise that next week is actually September. I don't know why it should take me by surprise, because I spent a lot of this week doing the September calendar, but here you go. So the yard sites that we're reciting tonight, the names that we're reciting are for the yard sites in the coming week, which go into the month of September. And they include Dr. Joel Hartman, Lester Friedman, Faye Greenfield, and Joseph Adler, as well as those in their first year of passing, Mark Clapper, Jay Harris, Gloria Schwartz, May Teichman, Marsha Hoffman, and Bernice Speck. For those who are reciting Kaddish, we do so now. Yitgedal v'yitgedash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach rutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. V'agalal v'zman kari v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah m'vorach le'olam onei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yit'ar v'yituman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, Da'amiram b'yama v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mo'amavu, ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. And thank you all for being here this evening. We will be streaming live on Zoom again next week. Many of you have already gotten back to me about your plans for in response to the high holidays. If you are planning to be here live and in person, please know that we need to reserve a spot. We only have 25 seats available for each of the days of the holidays, each of the services that we're doing. And we will be live streaming all of the services. So even if you don't come in person, you will still be able to live stream the services with us. I will be sending out a notice about Machzorim, the prayer book that we use for the high holidays. If people want to borrow one for home, we're trying to figure that out, how to help make that happen. I contacted the publisher of our Machzor, and they are not making it available online in any form, which is unfortunate because then we could have shared it that way. But we will do it this way instead. So again, thank you all for being here. I want to thank the Maritecs who are here helping me get through the usual stumbles and forgetting of everything. And Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you next week.